Hello and welcome everyone to our monthly webinar series for the Digital Codes Premium subscriptions and licenses. Um, Usually when we do these, we like to do a special topic here on specific tools that we have to update you on the progress of those and how we're improving everything. My name is Phil Anthony. I'm with ICC as the Digital Code Solution Specialist, and Ed Salerso's with us. He leads the product team that designs our awesome AI Navigator. Let me just clear up a couple things at the beginning here. Yes, this is part of the series of our webinars. Feel free. We will be adding more as we get those topics formed. And if you do want to play along and view these tools and features as we're here, on the webinar, you will always access the digital codes at the codes.iccsafe.org. So go ahead and feel free to open that up if you want. And also, I will mention that, let me pull this down a little bit here. Sorry. As far as this Digital Codes premium product here, I'm just pulling up. This is our ICC innovation page. As we're talking about this, you'll notice that we are trying to offer the best digital tools available for your jurisdiction or organization. As you can see here, we do the building codes and standards through our Digital Codes Premium software, which we'll be covering over today. But just to let you know, other family of solutions through our General Code and American Legal Division, we do custom content for your local amendments and ordinances. Those can be codified by our team and also displayed on this page here for your constituents. Your custom codes make it available and easy for people to access and be able to view in basic view, and for your internal team, have all these features that we discuss on these Digital Codes Premium solution webinars. Also, we have our zoning solutions through MapLink, and then our community development department where you have document storage, our municity software to help your jurisdictions, permitting and applications and things like that, and electronic plan review. Today, though, we are focusing on our AI Navigator. So I'm going to turn it over to Ed here, and he's going to give some information both on the updates of the AI Navigator, and then when he's done, we'll let him go, for about 15 or 20 minutes, because we'll make sure to circle back around and show all of our search functionality outside of the AI Navigator, where you can search individual titles. We've also included an easier method to find graphics within our titles as well too. So I will turn it over to Ed, and feel free. Actually, I do want to make the point, we will be taking questions here. So in the group chat, go ahead and post to everyone if you do have a question, so people can see the questions being asked. If it's something I should interrupt Ed in during it, then I will. If not, I will make sure to circle back around and answer any questions that you have, and we'll have time at the end for questions on anything. So take it away, Ed.
Thank you, Phil. And it'll be great to see, I know Phil's going to do the actual demo of the image search. The AI team that built AI Navigator provided some help to the digital codes team in using AI to build up the image matching for that and to enhance that search. So that is a great thing. I'm going to share a brief presentation, and I'm going to hope that this comes up quickly enough. And there we go. Zoom is always a bit slower for me. All right, we can see that. It says I'm sharing, so I'm going to believe. I'm here to talk about AI Navigator. I'm going to give you a little bit of the history and a little bit of insight into how the tool is built, how it's a little different than just using something like ChatGPT or sort of general purpose chatbots, and then what we are working on and developing for it. So AI Navigator, we first began working on these AI tools now over 2 years ago. In March 2023, we conducted an extensive analysis using ChatGPT 3.5, which was fairly new at the time and is now considered quite out of date compared to the versions of ChatGPT we're on now, but it was certainly at its time considered sort of the premium chatbot. With sort of distressing and disappointing results. We found that in terms of providing core answers, it was correct less than half of the time, well less, around 30%. And it was particularly bad at citing definitive sources, which is obviously something the ICC was really interested to see if we could improve. In terms of using AI, the real value that we saw in it was providing just a much more quicker and direct way to get an answer, but then also to get access to the completely appropriate code, which people do sometimes struggle to find. We set about working on a team that I worked with very closely and still work with very closely to develop and do our first rollout of AI Navigator. The total project time, because we launched it literally just days before the annual meeting in October 2023, was about 5 months. It really was gratifying to work on. It was a very difficult project, I would say. It took quite a bit of time, but we saw what we consider to be good targets. We were seeing 85+% accuracy at launch. We see a higher degree of accuracy today. And it has certainly grown quite a bit. I'm going to throw some interesting numbers out at the very end of this presentation, but I can tell you that over 55,000 questions have been asked, and we're averaging over 3,000 questions per month. It's actually, that number is going to quickly be out of date as well. It's going to be closer to 5,000 questions per month, probably covering March and April. Something really important to understand is that the way we build AI Navigator is to continually test and refine it, and to work specifically with controlled data for it. So this is an example I do in some other presentations. What I call a name brand, the general LLM chatbot, one that you could just plug into. And if we ask it a pretty typical question for AI Navigator, is there a minimum temperature for a home heating system? It generalizes quite a bit in the answer, and it does something else, which is called hallucinating, right? So I cited a couple of bits of its answer here. It's saying around 68 degrees, which is obviously not how the code is written at all. It doesn't generalize in that way. And then also, as these answers get longer from these chatbots, especially the general ones, a lot of times they are really creating information. They're not, because the chatbot is not itself sentient, it doesn't actually know that what it's writing it's making up, but in this case it is. So it says a heating system may need to be capable of maintaining higher indoor temperatures. It's not actually the code. The next slide shows you with our tool, is there a minimum temperature the home system needs to provide? And it will bring you the answer from the code. Really key differences is it stresses sourcing. So it stresses providing exactly where what it's citing is sourced from and providing links to that. It also tries to very directly quote. So AI Navigator is not really as chatty as ChatGPT or other chatbots are, and that is sort of by design. We want it using the power that it has. It can very quickly find information. It can deduce information very well from sort of unclear questions, a lot of times better than we could. But when it is writing its answer, we don't give it a lot of freedom to write its answer. In this case, it cites really provisions of the code correctly, which is if there's a higher temperature, actually a lower minimum temperature is required. How does this get done? A lot of times people ask me that to say, well, you know, you say that it is different than something like ChatGPT. How is that? So there really are 3 ingredients to that. The first is a specific database that we create and maintain. It is a vector database. We turn all of the code language we're going to provide it access to into a bunch of zeros and ones. And the LLM, the large language model, it works over top of that. So it's called a large language model. It doesn't actually know language. It works through those zeros and ones. It then patterns the text it finds to find the most likely matches in terms of relevance. The other thing is that there are really highly customized prompts. So the chief way that people modify how the tone and the sort of wordiness of answers is by modifying prompts, like what you add to the question. So if you ask the question, are drinking fountains required in restaurants? It's a question we use as a test question. It really is not what the LLM hears. What it hears are a lot of things for this, so part of our directive is for this question, provide a clear citation to link to the ICC code. Do not speculate or guess. Many other things it then says. It actually is, I believe, about 17 paragraphs long that gets added to your question to instruct the LLM every time those questions are asked. And a lot of that is tested pretty consistently for us. We're actually about to roll out pretty significant upgrade to the prompt, because as the large language model tooling evolves and we get updated releases of sort of the base tools that are there, actually updating the prompt becomes really necessary, because we do find that helps the performance, that to get the most out of sort of upgraded tools, you need to continually be looking at the instructions that you give it and even the structure of the data you're providing it. The third ingredient is really probably the most important. So the first two are ones that people talk about, I think, fairly often when they talk about training AI. The third one is one that I hear fewer people talk about, which is a testing and evaluation. It's definitely not the case that you can build a tool like this and consider yourself done and just sit around and be very happy. We have sets of questions. We can test a couple hundred questions at a time typically. And we've built the tool to actually be self-evaluative. So we give it a question such as, is a charcoal grill permitted on a wood balcony of a 2-story family house or of a 2-family house? And we then provide it what we believe to be the best form answer that we want it to give. It doesn't mean that it gives that answer automatically, but what it can do is we build basically an extra tool into our system that takes those questions and answers. And then every time we update a prompt, we switch a version of the LLM, we make any change to the system that might affect its performance, we run through those test questions again, and the tool actually self-evaluates and says, how close am I getting to these answers? That's not all we do. We don't just trust the tool always in terms of those measurements, but we can use some of that self-measurement to then tell us where do we need to look more carefully. So we can just test more rapidly. We can evolve the tool and its logic in a much more concentrated fashion. If you go to use AI Navigator, I will at the end of this sort of pop out and show it to you live really quickly. It's improved in its look. If you used it sort of more than a year ago, it looks a bit different. We now have, initially it was built just with support for the I codes because we really wanted to focus on best possible performance and accuracy there. It now supports all the states. And when you select a state, you can certainly choose the I codes, and about 40% of the users still do ask their questions of the I codes as the default. But you can choose a state. You can choose a cycle if more than one cycle is available. And it will at that point then use that set of code. So it changes what the resource codes that AI Navigator is using. You then ask your questions and get answers. So if I'm asking for a state, does Oklahoma distinguish between public home and storm shelters? What comes back that's really important is your answer, which is obviously the part you're going to focus on. It's the part that sort of looks like it's getting typed out as it comes up. But most importantly, I think actually it also provides you reference sections as to where am I taking you to, as sort of it always will provide 3. It can provide more than that as well. And we're going to probably expand the number it provides. And when you click on those reference sections, it will bring up a very quick preview of what the actual text is that's in that section. You can then also jump to section. And if you do that, and you jump to that section, it's going to map directly to the relevant text. So it's going to create a link onto the Digital Codes platform, and you can then read that text. And in this case, it's really useful because I asked it a question that is actually unique to Oklahoma. And it's giving me text that Oklahoma has authored specifically about this. So it's really important that AI Navigator have that knowledge sort of state by state and understand what is different within this, so that it provides good contextual answers. There's a lot that I've put together recently for presentations that has actually been really gratifying to see. We've actually, as of this morning, had 57,378 questions. So I quoted more than 55,000 before. There's a few stats in here that really show to what I think we're trying to get at, which is to constantly improve the tool. When we launched in October of 2023, the average response time was 27.6 seconds. We told ourselves that if we could get under 30 and have it work the way we want to, we would be really happy. We pretty quickly found out from users that 30 seconds seemed like an eternity to them, even though it was producing results they were generally happy with. The models themselves have gotten faster, and we have found ways to make the tool faster. As of the last time I measured response time earlier this month, we were averaging under 9 seconds to provide answers. And many times that you use it, it will sort of be half that amount of time. It tends to take a bit longer if there are multiple parts to the questions. For very direct, very quick questions, a lot of times it can be 4 or 5 seconds to get its response authored. We do quality scoring on a 0 to 3 scale. And we told ourselves that when we launched it, we didn't think on that scale we would be at 2, which we would consider to be good. But we thought we could get close to it, and we did. We scored it on the first month that it was live at 1.93. The most recent score that I did was for February. We're always about a month behind in doing it. And now we are at a very high number, actually a number that I think we would have thought was maybe a bit out of range. But so much has improved in terms of the tooling, and we've gotten a lot of great user feedback. I engage users pretty often. I've spoken and showed it off at the AIA show, at our conference, and I've had people do testing and provide feedback and had calls with them. And every little bit of that actually does make it a better tool. But the bot will get better. And right now we have been testing for a couple of months with our commentary and expert answers, our premium answers section of digital codes in particular, and training AI Navigator on that content. It is really tricky content to train AI Navigator with, but it's really valuable content as well. And we certainly see what we think is some really good progress, so that quality and depth of answers are going to get even better utilizing that content. Our users definitely have told us that they don't love the way the history is today. You can look at your last 3 questions asked today. That's definitely not enough for the people that use the tool a lot. They want a complete history available to them. So we are working on that with our digital codes team to serve up basically that full history that you can look back and say, hey, I asked the questions even a couple months ago, and I want to see those questions and answers that I received previously. The good news is everything's actually saved for that. So for the people that want that, they won't have to start from nowhere. If they've been requesting it for 6 months, they will be able to get it when we release that feature. And then we are gearing up at some point later this year to release a conversation mode. So today, in order to achieve the best accuracy and the best lookup, AI Navigator treats every question you're asking it as a new question. And it does that for the very specific reason that we've tested it pretty extensively and seen that longer conversations do produce more hallucination in AI bots. And that's actually fairly well documented out there as a sort of reality. But we do have users that would benefit from that conversation mode. So actually our plan is to offer users a choice as they move forward and use AI Navigator. So definitely look for that. It's something we will promote when it's available as well. And then AI Navigator beyond digital codes. I'm very excited to be working with my colleagues in General Code and hopefully soon my colleagues in Municity to use AI Navigator for their content as well. We're in the testing phase of doing that right now. So what I was doing before I came to this meeting was reviewing test results, on other content besides just the digital codes content for AI Navigator. All right, I saw a few questions popping up. So if there's a couple, Phil, that we want me to cover real quick, I'm happy to do that. I was also just going to pop out to show people navigating to AI Navigator on the digital codes platform.
Go ahead and transition over to that. I think the questions are going to come from, the actual software there. This is great background information. I think it's really great because, Ed's being modest here. They have spent a ton of time doing this, and I don't know if people have, used ChatGPT or AI to look up code questions, but this is a whole different model. So you saw some of the examples where just going on the internet will cause some problems. I know there's other corporate organizations that are trying to do this, but we definitely encourage you to compare answers to it. And then, yeah, Ed, the questions here, I know you're going to go through it, but people are asking, can they choose specific cycles, specific states and
Yep.
such? And I do see one question that is a specific question that you might want to pump into AI Navigator, but Ed, you might want to take a look at that too in a break too. It probably has too many parts. So go ahead and also tell them how to form the best question. I know you do.
Yep. So, yep. Let me just talk about navigation a little bit. In the menu that you can have, AI Navigator is available in the Premium Tools section. You can navigate to it by selecting Premium Tools and selecting AI Navigator is the first tool that's there. You also can, if you're going to use search, you can choose to use AI Navigator instead. So we give you an option. If you type into the search bar, it is still going to use the traditional digital code search. But if you hit Ask AI Navigator Code Questions, it's going to take you to this screen. When you get to the screen, you can select the iCodes or a jurisdiction. So the latest testing I was doing was working on the live system with Florida. We have 2 code cycles available for Florida right now. Most states only have a single code cycle available that's trained on at this point, but that will evolve over time. For the iCodes, we have everything from 2015 to the current 2024 cycle. And every one of those is actually its own training routine. So it's its own set of data with those codes. And it is its own set of training that the tool gets on that. It does help. It's definitely the case that we can take AI Navigator at this point and point it at almost any thing. And if it's building codes and it looks like building codes, it'll do a reasonable job. But it always benefits from specific training. You do have access to the last 3 codes you've asked, the last 3 questions you've asked. I'm going to just select one real quick to get it to re-ask that question. Using Florida, using its current cycle, it's going to take that, in this case, was probably a little less than 5 seconds. And it's going to give me an answer to that question. Right. And as it generates the answer, and that actually, when I talk about 8 seconds, it is the full time it takes to generate and produce the question. It's then going to give me the content that I can look at directly from digital codes. I think this is a really helpful and useful way. Our users definitely like this, that instead of always shooting them off the page, if the answer is useful to them, then being able to read the most relevant code directly below without navigating away from the page, I think is something a lot of them really do like. And like I said, bringing up a history section specific to them is, I think, going to also be important. Okay, so one of the things I give a much longer version of this talk that talks about using LLMs and talks about how to effectively work with them. I definitely recommend with any LLM, not just ours, not just AI Navigator, to take multi-part questions and break them down. If you know you have fundamentally different questions you're asking or things that are in multiple parts, almost every LLM does better with that if you break things into parts. And I can't stress enough that tends to up the accuracy. It will try to answer almost any question, although AI Navigator is programmed with what's called a confidence level. So unlike, again, more general chatbots that will create an answer really to any question, AI Navigator will not do that. AI Navigator, if in its own confidence rating, its confidence is low, it's going to tell you that. It'll say, hey, I'm not really sure that I can answer the question. It will still try to provide you the most relevant sections. The case. And that is very much by design. So if you use AI Navigator and you get that response, it's not that it's not working. It's that from our perspective, it is working. We don't want it guessing. We do not want it hallucinating. For the ICC, that's really an important thing. I saw their question about is on the program to upload construction drawings or CAD. It is on the roadmap. It's not necessarily going to be part of AI Navigator itself. So something we have tested and we've worked with multiple people to look at is what is the potential to use AI on those types of drawings, and where does it thrive and where does it come up short? Because it's definitely the case that there are unique challenges to anything you're bringing in graphically and asking AI to look at. Again, AI is breaking even those drawings down and it's scooping up information from them and trying to use them effectively, but it can be quite effective at some checks that it does there. It is something we are actively working on. I spend time on that problem as well. And I would expect to see the ICC, within the next year or two, have sort of some more offerings in that area, some more tools available. There also is a Revit plugin that I think Phil mentioned, where you can hook up code content and use your digital codes access while using Revit. And I would definitely recommend that as well. I think for people in the design space, that is really valuable. Okay. I did see a test question. I will throw what I think is the essence of that test question into AI Navigator, because I like to play too. So I see it's going to be with New York. So I'm just going to put in one more sample. Okay, so this is asking this question. I've taken, like I said, I've taken the essence of that out of the question. We certainly could even ask the longer version of that question. It is going to cite the code, and it's doing exactly what I wanted to do here, which is it's very directly citing the code first. Right, a type 1 has been installed at all commercial cooking appliances that produce grease vapors, and it's actually going and finding multiple sections that potentially apply. And in a question like this, where the essence is like, hey, what are these requirements? And I'm not clearly defining, the words like a club and hosts dinners does not clearly define it perfectly. AI Navigator is told, if you haven't been 100% sure and told that this is a restaurant, consider multiple sections and provide multiple pieces of advice that may apply to those questions. So it is a good example where if there's anything that doesn't let it 100% pinpoint a single answer, it will provide multiple options. Hopefully that's helpful. There are resource sections there. Like I said, every one of those, it will provide a resource section. It'll allow me to jump into the chapter. Okay, I know there's a little more to show here, so I'm going to stop sharing screen and I'm going to let Phil take control and show you a little bit about how AI has been used to improve our image searching. It really has achieved some great results. If there's a few more things that we can answer questions, I will certainly stick around and do that.
Yeah, I'll allow anyone if they want to raise their hand to verbally ask a question. And it might be good to talk about how to formulate a good question. I know you've done that in other webinars. There was a question in the chat that's probably a good example, might have too many components. I don't know if you want to.
I actually used that one, right? So,
okay.
And actually doesn't require, so that question also had a piece of, does it require a suppression system at all? I would ask that question. That's how I would draw the separation right there. The question I asked to say, hey, what are the requirements, assuming it's, 2 8-burner gas ranges, I would ask that question, and then I would ask the question of, is a fire suppression system required for this type of application? Divided into 2 questions, you're probably going to get a multitude of reference sections and sort of the best possible hits from AI Navigator to pointing you to the right information. And that really is my number one piece of advice. The other thing I really do advise people is, if you're using a tool that you've never used before, the best thing you can do first is ask it a question, right? And really look at the sourcing of that. I think the real difference in these tools is you get a great sense after using them for a while of how are they sourcing information. And tools that actually have too wide of a source of information often actually have much lower accuracy. It is really important, unless you want an AI chatbot that is a philosopher and is speaking about everything, it's really important to give it a contained set of information so that it draws, really factual answers.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. I know there was, when we do go to AI Navigator, there are some, hints and tips as I saw there. And, sometimes, people are pretty specific. But the nice thing about it is you don't need to be very specific. I have, jurisdictions where people, the administrative staff answering the phone can, actually, give a great answer for questions there and be able to provide that information as well too.
Yep. So I'm going to just one more point that I'm going to make real quick. Somebody's asking about API potential use of like our AI tool is what I assume you're asking about, Jordan. I've put my email in there. It is actually something that we're discussing with people right now. It is a tool that we would consider making available to others for a fee as well. And there are people that are definitely interested in using AI Navigator in that way, as opposed to, because we're going to keep evolving it and training it and keeping it up to date on codes. So it certainly for others could potentially be a way for them to not have to do that and incorporate AI Navigator, into a larger chat system they're using as like what would be known as a specialist agent within another chatbot. We are not opposed to that type of use. We probably in some cases would decline it for certain types of applications, but it is something we're working on. So if you want to write me and inquire about that, I'm happy to talk about it.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, now Ed will stay on here for a little bit. If you have any of those AI Navigator specific questions, go ahead and post them. I'm going to continue on and talk more about our other search tools that are in here. And as Ed mentioned, we do appreciate feedback both on content and tools and additions that we can make this the best software available. If you look up here, whenever you're logged in, you would be able to click on here and the give feedback. We read these all the time, and we do integrate these suggestions as best we can to improve the product. So please always feel free to submit feedback on here all the time if you see some, whether it be something that looks like an error or something for improvement. Please fill those out. We do, look at those and pay attention. All right, so Ed had discussed the AI Navigator, and we did put that up there in the search bar. Before we introduce the AI Navigator, one of the great things about digitizing all these codes is you have the ability to quickly search through all these titles. And just, a little bit of background here. When we talk about digital codes premium, the word premium doesn't, designate a set of specific titles or a collection. You can have a premium license, and let me just pull this up. A lot of people do come to our pricing webpage. So all the word premium means is that you have a subscription, a license to access these features. And you could have a digital codes premium license for a single title like IBC. And just so you know, when you order, any of these titles or collections, if you get the 2024 IBC, it will include the content for 21, 18, 15, going back to, I think, 2000, we got it back to. When you start to add multiple singles, if you got 5 or 6 iCode titles, it most always will be less expensive to get the iCode collection license or subscription. And if you're going to be adding multiple collections, iCodes are really popular. The commentaries are very popular. The state amended collections are there. Usually when you put 2 of those collections together, you are going to save money by getting Premium Complete, which has over 2,300 titles. So as you can see, I do have the Premium Complete up here license. And if I just start from the home page, and if I wanted to do a search across all of those 2,400 titles that we have, I could do that. I don't know how effective that might be for some results that you're looking for. There we put in egress and we see 67,000. But it does show that yes, you could go ahead and enter a word and search for that. And then as you see here, I'll go through each one of these to kind of explain. If you do have an exact phrase, you can put that in there. Like if you were to put in, let me just do this. This is showing you how you could adjust any of your searches. So I started with egress. If I want to put egress window and I hit apply there, doesn't do a whole lot of results or better on the results. And the reason is it's because it's looking for any code section that has the word egress or the word window, and that's widow. Let me fix that. So what you're able to do, and that even increased results more. So first tip probably is if you got more than one word in there and you are looking for the exact word, is go ahead and cut that out of there and put it into the exact phrase. And as you make changes to any of your existing search, go ahead and pick up on that, and you'll be able to see it's looking for that exact phrase. You can also do all, any, or none. we have this proximity search. Once again, if we put in the word egress, spelling it correctly, proximity search will find any sort of code section that has both of these words in it within 50 words of each other. And that's another way to go ahead and filter your results. As you saw, I'm doing a global search, so this is going through all those 2,300 titles. If you wanted to pick a specific book, you could do that. You see these categories. If you were just looking for a specific state, you could choose that. Want to look through the commentaries, just that. And then you are able to go ahead and choose those code years as well too, and the content type. So this was a large search, but if I go through and let me just pick one of the results here, the 2018. If I am in a title already, you will see that the search bar up here has already filtered that. So what's probably a more common use case scenario is that we're going to search while we're in the book. So if you see there, use the word egress, and it is already filtered to just show from 2018 IRC. So now transitioning and the other announcement we made with the new graphic search, which does use AI to identify these images. Whenever you do a search, it's going to show you those content results. And as I showed you in the previous page, if I wanted to put in, more search terms or filters, you are able to do that. So this will show you the content first. If I just explain this, if I had done titles from the main page, it would have showed me titles that have that word in it. And here is the new graphics tab. This is automatically searching for graphical results. So here we are. You are able to see those being returned for those graphic results coming through here. And, Ed, I don't know if you can still speak to this. While I was in that title, it did bring me back results from different different years.
Mhm.
Let's see, go ahead and speak up if, that.
Within my understanding is within the image search, it will do that, right?
Okay.
That it will still, because of how it's doing the matching, that it will still give you a variety of title results.
So if I'm putting over here and then I apply that
That filter should,
2018, that's going
yep.
back. So yeah, no, this is what, we encourage people to use this and, give results back. I think that actually was, one of the things that was asked. It's like, I know I'm in 218 IRC, but I'd kind of like to see all those different results. And if you see, it did limit to 218. And here, once again, if you wanted to, be more specific with those titles, you could pick the actual title and narrow that search there as well too. And then just going through the I codes, that's another search that or filter that you could apply to the search, and that just showed bringing back those two for the IRC. So the advanced search functionality can be accessed from both the home page or within a specific title. And as you can see, all the different tools that you have, you can save your searches through there, but whenever you put in a search term, just like I said, please remember that kind of throws people off with having that many results. So usually the first thing I do is for that exact phrase, but as you can see, you can use all, any, or none of the words, and then you can actually save your searches that you want to keep there and save that as well too for using it again. All right, I saw questions coming through, and Ed, I don't know if you want to put any context to AI.
I saw a question somewhere in this list on calculations. AI Navigator will perform basic calculations now. It is actually something I didn't put in my future slides, but and Phil, you could show this. The Digital Codes platform actually has some calculators available, and it's a growing list. And one of the things we will test with in the second half of this year is actually having AI Navigator let users directly use those calculators while within AI Navigator, so that if you want to perform that calculation, we'll give you an option to basically just integrate that tool with using AI Navigator. So I want to get some information from AI Navigator. I'm going to ask it, about allowable area, but then I'd like to calculate about allowable area as well. You'll be able to use the calculator to do that.
And we've had these calculators here a little bit over a year. We started out just with a few of them, and actually we have just added the plumbing one. So these are requests that we're taking, the next ones that are coming in to be used. These are available with, any of your Digital Codes premium licenses. It will allow you to plug in custom numbers to create these calculations. You are then able to prepare that, have that in a PDF that you can save as it prepares. Or maybe I didn't change the numbers enough. But what will happen is this will produce a PDF that will be in your downloads that you can access afterwards. And as you can see, you can put down, change the parameters.
Yeah, I think you didn't actually finish completing that parameter box.
All right. Well, I'm
Yeah.
not going to hold up time on that. But yes, all these we do continue to add as additional features. If you're looking for that again, on the left side, usually the best way to navigate to the tools here, the premium tools. There's AI Navigator that we cover, the premium answers, compliance calculators. And if you did want to start your search, since we've got the topic of search here, you're able to start right from there as well too.
I did see a question about how the image search is working. Is it using just caption and other text metadata? It does use that. It does use more than that as well. So it also develops some context by area. It actually does use the images as well. One of the big things it does is it actually matches and removes the many duplicates that there are. Obviously, there's code cycles, there's various editions, there's state editions of the codes. One of the issues we have within our platform is we have so much content that images repeat fairly often. One of the primary uses of the tool was to not show users 5, 6, 10 copies of the same image. So to also develop a relevance to the search term and then to provide sort of the most relevant version of that image.
And someone asked a question about other AI code tools out there. I know you've done a lot of testing. What type of major differences do you see, Ed?
I mean, the primary difference we've seen is just really the overall focus on sort of, best lookup and maximum accuracy. That is the focus of our tool. So I think a lot of tools that you see on platforms are ones that are essentially, they're fronts for Claude or ChatGPT or something, and there's a custom prompt, but in most cases they're not highly specifically trained. They will dice their content into code sets. We're pretty pleased that the work we do, which is a little more focused on sort of brief, well-cited, well-linked answers, does yield results and does yield a better tool.
Yeah, would you almost say the competitors that you've seen out there doing the AI for code research is simply the same as typing it in Google or something or Chat?
I mean, I think there are some differences, but I would say that, right, we do benchmark ourselves against, some other tools that we see out there. And we do actually work with other people who are building these types of tools as well. And so we have some very cooperative relationships as well to people who are building AI applications and using our code content. So when somebody wants to do that, I am involved with that as well and with getting them the content. And when it's somebody that has really good ideas on AI, we tend to talk to them and try to get good ideas, because it is certainly an evolving area. And I think ICC, we will continue to build some of these tools ourselves, but I do expect us to also partner with other people to bring more tools to the site.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we have the focus here. I mean, whenever you do the search using AI Navigator here, it's going to just, it's searching your own library. So it's not going to go on the internet and get any, erroneous information. And as mentioned, there are, organizations that are providing AI, enhanced, software and services to make your job easier. But always make sure people are pulling from, the iCodes. Like you said, people can go out and take iCode information anywhere they find on the internet. It may or may not be correct or have errors in it. With AI Navigator and Digital Codes Premium, you are guaranteed that you are getting the code from the source, the exact correct iCodes that are being used, within the communities.
And there was a question in there sort of specific to a code book, like, can it work with the IEBC? It works when you select a state or iCodes, it is using all the codes that apply to that location. And that includes if the IEBC is adopted by a location, or if using the iCodes, it's always in there, it will include that. So if you ask it questions that you know are covered by the IEBC, and obviously the IEBC and the IBC have areas they cover together. But you can prompt it and say that, for an existing building, I want to ask this question. It is then going to be a lot more likely that it will source its answer from the IBC if it can. The AI Navigator does have information within its prompt about how to use the different code books. And again, that's something I think that we do that probably is a little different than what I see other people doing, is we do try within how we train it to give it context on where to best source the answers from, even within a code set where it has access to a dozen different code books.
Yeah, no, actually, that's a good question. Expand on that a little bit, Ed, because that's about phrasing the question. He mentions IEBC right here. If you ask a general question without stating existing building or IEBC, you kind of explain how does it work if you tell AI Navigator, IEBC only. Is it okay?
So it doesn't. You can't at this point. It is actually something we have considered several times. We do think the use case is not really perfect of limiting it. So one of the things we've seen is that most users don't always know exactly what code book they're looking for, right? And that is sort of an issue that means that we don't necessarily want people to limit it, right? If the worst thing I think we could do in a tool is if we built a tool that said, oh, it only answers from this code book, and the answer were really sitting right in another code book that is applicable to your use. So we do want it to provide those answers. You can type in, Phil, if you want to, there's a lot of topics that are very common from the IEBC, right? To say, if you ask about, what are the requirements for accessibility if I am, redoing the entrance of an existing building. I've seen that question a bunch of times. That is got probably a 95% chance of then, citing correct sections from the IEBC. It's not perfect. The one thing I will say is AI Navigator does at times provide sources that are a little bit different. And I figured this would bring up the existing building code. But it also does say, hey, there's actually some sections. The existing building code cites back to the IBC fairly often, and it did, in this case, pick up that connection as well.
Yeah, no. And I talk to users who find that to be helpful too. So yeah, if you add a little bit more text in there, it will probably give you more what you're looking for in that. But people do see value of seeing where else it is referenced as well too. And I'm sorry, Ed, I don't know if you had already addressed this question as I was jumping around in the screen here, but they're going back to the image results, the graphic results.
I did cover that and talk a little bit about somebody that asked what it's considering in providing those results.
So just
I did provide some more context on that it's not just looking at text that goes with those images. It's actually contextually identifying the types of images as well.
Yeah, sorry about that. And then someone asked about using this in Puerto Rico, which does not have, those codes. In that case, I mean, even if, what's an example? How about New Jersey, Ed? I mean, we could limit to New Jersey, and what it is showing you, New Jersey contracts back with the ICC to produce their amended IBC and IRC.
Yep.
Or the other ones, the other I codes.
So it's a combination. It's actually the description needs to be updated because it's the IBC, IRC, and IFC are updated by New Jersey. They published the IFC update a couple of months ago. Yep. And that's already in the code set that it's using, but the description isn't updated. But yes, so what you're going to get when you select any location, and Puerto Rico is actually a good example of one that probably will get added. There are additions to be made. You're going to get, in many cases with those states, the complete custom set, but in other cases, you're going to get the most applicable I codes, right? So if there are not a set of statewide codes, or if they don't amend the codes, which some of them don't, or if they make very small amendments not with the ICC, we're going to pick the most applicable I codes for that state. I would expect to see in AI Navigator more locations than just U.S. states, probably by the time we get to this point next year. It is on our roadmap as well. There are some custom testing versions of AI Navigator right now with building codes that are not even in North America. But there will be some time taken with those as well to make sure that it's working to the way we want it to.
And I just wanted to point this out too. I was talking about how this can help, both people who are familiar with codes, get into the correct code section quicker, and the people who may be answering the phones, in your department. So if someone had asked this question here, using it as an example, they would be able to jump right to those code sections. As you can see, it does give the overview here. And if I wanted, this is a long section here, I can jump right to that section within the chapter. And we're doing other webinars that will include this information here, but as you can see, all the insights that may come with that reference code is there. Taking it back to the example, if you're on the phone with someone, because your department has a digital codes premium subscription, they have all these icons that can access while they're on the phone. If they wanted to copy this link and text it or email it to that person on the phone, when they click on it, since you do not need to have a subscription to view the codes in a free basic view, they could click on it and you could literally be on the same page right here. If they wanted you to copy that and send it over to them, you do have the ability to copy the text, put it to the clipboard, because they won't be able to do that without a subscription. And then if you want to retain the formatting, if it's a longer section, you are able to print any code section and subsection. So this is kind of nice where if you wanted to keep this, you could download. It has all the information, title, chapter, code section, shows it's coming from the authoritative source down there. You could mark this up, save it to your desktop, and send it over to them in an email. And then I got too many things going on here. Move it down a little bit. And then also here, any of these code sections, if there's like something that you would want to take, this does not apply, at a certain address, you could keep this, you could organize your notes into project tags. And then if someone else ever references this before, they'll be able to see custom notes and be able to share that within your organization as well too. All right, let me pause there for a minute. We are getting about 5 minutes away here, so feel free to post more questions. If you have a verbal question you'd like to ask, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll open that up. And I see a couple through here. Ed, there's a question at the bottom. The NFPA, currently NFPA has their own NFPA link software that they use. So for that example, we do not have those digital rights to have that in this software.
There's a question about would a plugin be considered for Bluebeam? At this point, it's not something that we are working on actively at this point. I think we would consider ICC content plugins or AI tools for any software that had sincere interest in using it. One question was down there, would default to exact phrase instead of any of these words in searching? I think that is a good question in terms of it. I think that in general has been based on the search patterns they've seen in terms of results. I can tell you that as we start to incorporate things like AI into the search bars and the image searches, that distinction actually starts to matter less. So I would expect as we get to future generations of the search over the tool, when you're using a large language model to supplement search, it doesn't actually even matter to say those things anymore. It typically will match those exact phrases first and give you those results in that order. So I think we will get even better search as time goes on.
All right, tutorials, which was what we kind of went over here. I will point out there these the onboarding videos, we call them user videos. These are accessible there on that question mark under onboarding videos. This is actually Phil doing an exciting Teams meeting by himself, but sharing the screen, walking through. I do try to keep these updated as we make changes to where the menus are and things like that, but feel free to access those. And I am always taking suggestions for new user videos to display some of the features that we have. Feel free to send me an email or once again, use that question mark bar up here to give feedback on any of the items that you have questions, comments on any of the Digital Codes premium features. All right, last call for anyone wanting to ask any verbal questions here. Feel free. I'll post my email again here. I will sit online for the last 5 minutes in case someone has chats here, but I will stop the recording here. I'd like to thank everyone for their participation, and feel free to ask questions. Ed provided his email if you got questions on the AI, how we're integrating that in Digital Codes Premium. He has offered his email, and anything else on the Digital Codes Premium features, send me an email as well too. Thank you all for attending. I will stop the recording now.
All right. Thanks for having me, Phil. I'm going to take my leave.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right.